Newark, like a lot of other cities in the country, actually has an aging water infrastructure. There are lead pipes, and those are called service lines, but there are also copper pipes throughout the city with lead solder that can erode. There are a lot of things that can kind of contribute to lead making its way into drinking water. And that's where we find ourselves in Newark, where first in the public school water testing and then in the residential areas, they've found elevated levels of lead over the allowable standard of 15 parts per billion. The Poison Control Center has not really been involved with the city's response, although we would happily help if, going forward. But the city, I think, made the decision to distribute filters and gave out filters, and now is distributing bottled water. Bottled water is a great quick fix because we know there's no lead in bottled water, but it's hard to sustain long term. Lead is primarily a neurotoxin, and it can have effects on any patients who have excess exposure to lead, particularly in the high doses. Not really what's normally associated with drinking water, but particularly at high doses of lead, which is associated with residential peeling lead paint, people who work with firearms, munitions, shooting ranges, that kind of thing, even gunshot wound victims who have retained bullets. Sometimes those people get very high levels of lead. And what we see in the adults is brain fog, fatigue, high blood pressure, sometimes organ damage, particularly focused around the kidneys. But in children, even at lower levels, we see problems with development. There's evidence that suggests that IQ points are lost when a child is exposed to lead, even at lower levels. And so the people that we have to focus on protecting whenever you talk about fixing the water are kids and pregnant women. The elevations in blood lead associated with drinking water are real, but very small. A kid who's got a high lead level that's likely to cause a problem with their development is much, much, much more likely to have gotten it from peeling residential paint. And so when we talk about patients exposed to drinking water lead, we're not talking about people who are likely to need chelation, for example. They're not likely to need hospitalization for drinking water lead alone. But it's also our job to realize that those lower levels, which may not need hospitalization or chelation, could have a developmental consequence, and that's why it's got to get out of the water. A lot of nuances that are actually a little dizzying about, how does the lead get in? And if you test a faucet at this time of day and then you test it again at another time of day, is it going to be the same? And does the running the water help? And is it like we started off this conversation, there's a lot of things that can contribute to lead in water, and it could even be the faucet, so finding out where it's coming from and getting rid of it, is, I think, what I would like to see happen. The city of Newark will not be the last city to encounter this. The city of Flint, Michigan was not the first. It's a priority nationally to get lead out of drinking water, and that seems to be centered around a lot of the cities just because of the aging water infrastructure.